Blog Talk Radio.
And welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And, you know, we're revisiting the glory days of Carnivore Radio. And we have Chris Calandra as a guest, and it couldn't be a better time given all the political stuff that's happening right now. Chris, welcome to Carnivore Radio.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be back as part of the gang. Thanks for having me on, Eric and Jeff.
Well, you know, we're really excited to have you on, and we're gonna, I'm gonna do something. I want you to lead this off, and we're right before the debates. The polls, they're going back and forth. How do you see things going?
So, with the debate, you mean?
Well, the debate and the election overall. I mean, just to put it position it. Dr. Lopkin and I have been doing this since the summer, and I honestly, and
right.
I really believe that over the summer. I thought Trump was really up against it, and I'm not so sure now. So, I mean, it's up to you. You tell me what you think, and for our listeners.
We'll start with general, and then I'd love to talk a little bit about the date. But it seems to me it's very difficult to figure out what's going on. The polling is sort of all over the place. Generally, on the national level, Biden seems to be in the lead. But when you look at some battleground states like Wisconsin and Michigan, Trump is in there pretty tight. Also, the Rasmussen poll, which was the only one to get it right in 2016, at least of the major polls, they have Donald Trump up. It's really difficult to tell, though, because it's a very unconventional season. I mean, have you ever seen someone not campaign for the presidency? Joe Biden is doing very, very little.
I have never seen it. Let me just reflect on a conversation I had with a friend of mine who used to be a Trumper, and then he was vehemently anti-Trump. And then I had dinner with him. We're just hanging out, and it's hard to really articulate our conversation, but he was pretty much wavering of who he was going to vote for. And I'm not so sure. Of course, it's not a scientific poll. That's not indicative of other people. I think over the summer, people were like, Trump's finished. It's gone. I've had enough. Biden's rope-a-dope has hurt him. Dr. Lopkin?
Yeah, well, the rope-a-dope actually wasn't what hurt him. He was doing better when he kept his mouth shut and was away in his bunker. Now that he's actually making public appearances, people are going, I can't vote for this person. There was a great video that I saw of one of his interviews. And in the video, it's a camera angle that you didn't see during the interview. During the interview, it's your typical camera angle, headshots of the interviewer, headshot of Joe Biden. In the video, it had a wide shot of the entire set. And when you saw that, you saw that Joe Biden was reading his answers from a teleprompter. He cannot think on his feet. He can't answer simple questions.
Well, let's throw it out to our guest because I agree with you. I love train wrecks. Everyone likes a car crash, the whole rubbernecking kind of a scenario. I think the ratings are going to be huge, Chris, for this debate because even if you're partisan, I mean, even if you're, on the left, people are really, I would think, want to know, can this person really keep it together for an hour? Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, I would expect that the ratings will be huge. I think people want to tune in to see what Biden can bring to the debate because, as we just talked about, he's laid very low. He's had, at best, an uneven performance thus far. Then people always want to tune in either because they really dislike or even hate Donald Trump, but they're compelled to watch. And then, of course, he has his avid fans, and he is a great showman. So I think that the ratings will be very good. And let me throw this out to you guys. I think that the person that wins the debate on Tuesday will be the person that speaks the least.
Why do you say that?
Oh, yes. No. I think he's absolutely right. Go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you, Eric. My thesis would be that, Trump is a known quantity, and he turns some people off tremendously, and then there are other people that will support him seemingly no matter what. And on the other hand, you have Biden, and because he's laid low, if he can lay low through the debate and let Trump battle the media and go on his rants and do his showman routine, he might be able to get out of the debate without having to really have a commanding presence. On the other hand, if Biden, either by strategy or however it plays out, has to talk a lot and answer a lot of questions, he's prone to make mistakes and gaffes, and that will play to Donald Trump's advantage. So if I was counseling Donald Trump, I would tell him to be quieter and shorter than he normally is, and to try and kick things over to Joe Biden. Ask Joe Biden questions. You want to get Joe Biden talking as much as possible. That seems to be a winning strategy. What do you think of that, Eric?
Yeah, that's actually very good. The more Biden talks, the worse he does. However, I don't think Trump should stay completely out like you're suggesting, because Trump has an amazing ability, and I was talking about this with someone just this week, that he pokes. When he's talking to somebody, he pokes them, and he pokes them. And what happens is he gets them so aggravated that they reveal who they really are, and they lose their stage presence. They in a sense, they lose control. And I think if he can do it a little more subtly than he usually does, but just keep poking Biden until Biden loses it, then you're going to see, oh, well, Biden is just not presidential.
And that's what I was thinking about. I'm glad you really brought that up, both of you, is I'm thinking, and the question I was going to ask Chris and you is, does he do Sleepy Joe? Does he go into the whole thing? Do we really even know what city we're in? Does he do that, or does he be more presidential? I don't think he can help himself. I don't know. Chris, you first.
Yeah, I'll disagree with Eric a little bit. I think Trump might need to be careful about being viewed as a bully, steamrolling a senior statesman. You may not consider him a senior statesman. A lot of people don't. But if Trump really I think if Trump could make the debate not a referendum so much on him and more a referendum on Joe Biden, sort of with the question, can you really see this person leading this country at this time? I have a pretty good sense that a lot of people that really dislike Trump might still stay or go to his camp if they view Joe Biden as not up for the job, and that increase the chances that happens. You may only need Joe Biden to talk just enough to seal his own fate.
Okay, but how do you do that, Chris? Eric, I actually agree with Chris's assertion, but how do you do that? How do you where's the line?
Well,
and it's a tough question.
Right, because
that's actually the key. I think if Trump can do what Chris is suggesting, it will work very well for him. I have my doubts that he can exert that much control over himself.
Oh, I think that is very true.
So here's the balance. Yeah. Here's the balance. Is there a real negative if he gets into the Sleepy Joe, like 2016 reincarnated with, a low-energy jet, and Little Hands Marco and all that kind of stuff? Does that hurt him now? Or does that get Biden rattled so much that it becomes – there's some side of me that says this could go either way, that Biden has been in this for almost 50 years, that he mentions very little, keeps it very close to the vest, or does Trump ruffle the feathers enough that he says something really, really stupid, as crazy as it sounds like, let's step outside? I know that sounds crazy, but
right.
He's done it before.
Well, I would like to see, Jeff, and I agree with you, as poor as Joe Biden might have performed so far, it would not surprise me at all if he rallies and is more like the Joe Biden that we saw on the public stage when he was running for office as vice president. But as an example of what Donald Trump could conceivably do is one of the subjects is going to be the Supreme Court. He could say, well, listen, I put out a list of Supreme Court judges that I would consider so that everybody could judge the list that I'm going to be selecting from. Joe Biden, have you put out your list? And not leave it up to Chris Wallace, the moderator, to ask the questions, because I would not trust the moderator to really dig in and be willing to even try and get Joe Biden off the mark, because they're biased towards the Democratic Party, in my opinion. So I think he could perhaps answer questions and then kick it over to Joe Biden directly, and that might irritate Joe Biden and also might get Chris Wallace, the moderator, to say, hey, what about that, Joe? He put out the list of his potential nominee picks. What about your pick? I think Joe Biden will have a hard time dealing with that kind of interaction.
Fantastic point, Dr. Lopkin. Your comment.
I think that strategy can work very well. I think we have to look at the fact that the moderator is not going to be down the middle, and I'm wondering if Chris Wallace would actually halt Trump from doing that. I think the more pressure he puts on Joe Biden, the better he'll be. But I'm not talking about pressure like Sleepy Joe or Crooked Hillary. I'm talking about if he can stick to the facts and actually try to get Joe Biden to answer these questions. Now, the other thing, there are rumors going around that because of his performance in interviews so far, he is actually going to have an earpiece with somebody feeding him the answers. And if the debate moderator doesn't catch that before time, if somebody is coaching him through it, it's bad for the American people because you're not seeing Joe Biden, you're seeing his handlers. But if he actually tries to do it, it really does show that he's not capable of being president.
Is that possible, Chris?
I think, anything is possible. This is 2020, right?
I'm pretty sure it's against the rules, but,
It's against the rules, but wouldn't Trump and his people be on the lookout for that? And
I certainly hope so.
I would think so, because, if somebody did try and do that and got caught doing that, it would be game over.
That's game over.
I don't know. So
here's a couple of things.
It wouldn't surprise me because, like you said, Joe Biden does friendly interviews and he reads off a teleprompter. And when he was making comments about the passing of Justice Ginsburg, and look, Ginsburg's been in the public eye forever. Joe Biden's been in the public eye forever. We had to read off a sheet like he was talking about somebody that he didn't even know. It was really embarrassing. Any one of the three of us could give in a nice commentary on Justice Ginsburg passing without having somebody else write it down and for us to read it.
Off the cuff, correct?
All of
off
us
the cuff, gentlemen? Yeah, of course.
All right, hold that thought because we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
To reach the next level, you need to operate at peak performance. The key to this is mastering the 7 elements of success. Learn how to master mindset, focus, operations, communications, innovation, evaluation metrics, and continuous improvement. Get the Biznetics way at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and bookstores near you.
And we're back. And remember, if you want to be part of this conversation, you can call us at 563-999-3693. That's 563-999-3693.
Here's one thing I want to throw out to both of you. Unfortunately, being older than both of you, but beating the alternative, I remember probably 99 or something, maybe 96. No, 98, when Al Gore debated Ross Perot, and it was going to be a slam dunk, okay? And Perot did well. I mean, everyone thought – no, it's actually even worse than that. 2000, because Gore did so well against Perot, that everyone thought that during the Bush-Gore debates that Gore would just – clean his clock, and he didn't. And that was probably the election. The other thing about it, the other fact I want to kind of mention and want your comments on is that during the 2012 debates, the vice presidential debates, everyone thought that, Biden was going to get his clock cleaned. It was the, aficionado of facts he was debating, and Biden, I'd say he probably won the debate. So your comments, low expectations is my point, gentlemen.
Yes. We talked about, what we think Donald Trump should do to apply pressure on Biden and try and get Biden perhaps to talk more and to be challenged and not leave it to the moderator. But if you were Joe Biden, what would you counsel Joe Biden to do? I have opinions on everything, but I have a hard time coming up with an answer for that because you don't really have a feel. You don't really have a feel for who Joe Biden is or how he would govern because he's been so out of the spotlight. I don't even really have an answer to my own question.
If I was going to counsel Joe Biden...
Real quick response before Dr. Lopkin uses his usual brilliance. If I was advising Biden, I would say don't get in the weeds with policy. And it's snakes in the grass. Talk about moral. Go 30,000 feet, go 50,000 feet. Talk about how Trump has corrupted the office, how he's lost his moral focus, platitudes that really have no basis in facts. Dr. Lopkin.
Okay, no, I completely disagree. I would go the other way because a lot of the polls are have indicated that the voters want issues. So if I was counseling Joe Biden, I would tell him, take the 30,000-foot view, the 50,000 feet view of issues, but stick to those issues. Don't get into it with Trump. And when Trump pushes, simply say, I'm not going to dignify that with an answer.
I love that part, but the only problem I have with the issues, Chris, is Biden's been in public office for 50 years. He's been a part of the Obama. He has a record. You talk about foreign policy.
Yes, he does.
My God, that's a minefield. A minefield, Chris, isn't it?
It is.
Payloads of cash to Iran. ISIS. My God, it's like you have to go back to Jimmy Carter to be worse.
Yes, I don't think foreign policy is on the docket, though, right? Because I don't think there's much, if any, foreign foreign policy. But what I would say, though, is the trouble is Chris Wallace is not going to spend a lot of time on Joe Biden's record. So either Donald Trump is going to have to do it somehow or it's not going to happen. But I would think that Joe Biden, the one piece of advice I would have would be you want to make a referendum on Donald Trump. A lot of people don't like Donald Trump, and even many people that support Donald Trump don't even like him personally. And I think it would be, do you really want to have 4 more years of this guy in your living room? And I think that Trump should make it a referendum on, do you think this guy could lead the country? And Biden should make it a referendum on, do you want 4 more years of this guy? That seems to be a way the battle would shape up. And Biden probably can do that somewhat effectively, and he'll probably be helped by Chris Wallace, because I think the media is not going to play it straight in this debate or any of them, just like they haven't played anything straight so far.
I would agree with that. I think Chris Wallace does not like Trump. I think he's probably about as even keeled in terms of the alternatives. But I do think that I think it'd be a more fair arbitrator. I think the real key, Dr. Lopkin, is does Biden become unraveled? I mean, it's not hard to do.
That really is the key. If Biden can appear presidential during the debates, it's going to give him a bump. Can he do? I don't know. I mean, he hasn't even been able to do that when they're lobbing softballs at him. So I have doubts that he can do it during a debate. But if he can manage to do it, that is going to be a huge boost for him.
But Dr. Lopkin, you bring up the quintessential point. We'll throw it out to Chris. Is he really capable? I mean, he's had the newspaper we used to get in grammar school. I mean, that's the kind of questions he's getting. I forgot the name of that. But he cannot handle that. I mean, how is he going to do this?
It's going to be difficult. I mean, I'm a big believer, and I think each of you are too, that, you get reps, you do practice. You forge yourself, when you're tested. And, Donald Trump, for all of his faults, he mixes it up with the media. He takes tough questions, and he makes mistakes, to be sure. But he's battle-tested on this front. I think I saw a statistic that, he's taken 5 times as many questions over the last stretch of time from the media than Joe Biden has. And when you add on to that, like Eric said, Donald Trump gets tough, maybe even unfair questions. Joe Biden gets softballs. So I don't know Donald Trump is going to be ready for questions because he's been in the fight.
No, you're right. He's battle-tested.
Joe Biden, he's not well practiced.
No, I agree. Chris, that's a great point. I mean, I'll throw this out to both of you. My gut feeling is that, the way the polls are closing, the winner of this debate, I know that sounds dramatic, I believe could win I think this is it.
I would agree with that.
Well,
I think the stakes are very large for both of them.
Yeah, I think if Biden holds his own, then it's a whole new situation because the polls are closing. But if Biden gets just is unable to answer the bell, it could be game over. Dr. Lopkin?
Yeah, you also have to remember that early voting in some states has already started. So people are already voting. This debate goes off, people are going to be voting before the next debate. So it really is, it could be game over if either one of them really screws up this debate.
Great point, Dr. Lopkin. And Chris, I think Lopkin has a great point in terms of early balloting, early voting is already happening. But now, it's, next week, next Tuesday, it's in progress. It could change. This could be game over. And I think again, to reposition things, if Biden just gets out with a rope-a-dope, and Trump's got some problems. But if Trump crushes him, it could be game over. Your comment.
I think the stakes are very, very large for both of them and could have a tremendous impact because of all the factors we talked about, including the early voting. As a side note, there's a lot of things that, I get disgusted with in terms of, the powers that be in this country and how they behave. But, one example of that is President Trump's campaign requested that the board that governs the presidential debates move the debates earlier because of the early voting, and they were denied out of hand. That's incredible. I mean, that's a you could disagree with some of his ridiculous positions and some of the craziness he gets involved in, but that's unbelievably reasonable where states are allowing early voting. Everybody knows they're allowing early voting. It's been accepted that this is a good idea. Why would you not move the debates up? It's so disgusting.
Well, that was obvious. I mean, if you were a handler, a strategist for Biden, you'd have to have your head examined to move the debates up. Trump's correct. I mean, yeah, it doesn't help Biden in any way. And in fact, I believe that the rope-a-dope strategy was the strategy until the polls started closing. Dr. Lopkin.
But
go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Well,
no, but theoretically, Jeff, there's a presidential debate committee that's supposed to be somewhat partisan, is supposed to serve the American people, getting them information for the debates. I don't blame Biden for not wanting to maybe move it up earlier, but there's supposed to be a higher calling to serve the American people.
Unbiased. It's like, yes, and I'm going to be the next candidate or next draft choice for the NBA. Zero. No, it's been that way for years. Dr. Lopkin, final thoughts.
Yeah, I think if you remember when we were talking about this during the summer, I said the winner of the election is going to be whichever candidate removes his foot from his mouth first. And I still believe that. Either one of them can screw up their campaigns in this debate. If they are not presidential, if they go off the deep end, and we've seen both candidates do it, then it's game over. They've got to focus on what's important. They've got to appear presidential. They have got to give the American people confidence that whoever wins this election is capable of the job.
Chris, do you agree with that? Because I kind of do.
If Trump focuses on his accomplishments, he can do it. I'm not sure Biden has that leg to stand on.
Well, he has no accomplishments. Final thoughts, Chris. I think Dr. Lopkin has a good point.
I think he has a great point. I largely agree. I think, the corollary to what he's saying is I'm going to view the debate looking for who is speaking less on balance is going to have the upper hand. And then we'll see how the moderator handles that and how each of the candidates positions themselves to try and, get the win. And I'm so interested to see how this plays out. I mean, obviously there's a lot at stake for the country, and as a citizen, I'm invested in that. But just for pure political theater, I am so anxious to see.
I think the ratings are going to be huge. A great show, Dr. Lopkin, correct? I think we're close to the break.
Absolutely. It's always great having Chris back.
Fantastic, Chris.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Carnivore Radio. We're here every Friday at 4 at blogtalkradio.com/Carnivore Radio. You can also hear the replay as well as the Carnivore Bites podcast at the Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. We will see you next week.